Everyone, please rise. Be led in prayer by Alderwoman Stacy Gould.
Almighty God, we ask for your blessing upon the members of this council as we assemble here in this chamber to conduct the ongoing business of our city. With your guidance, we will strive to ensure that all our decisions are for the common good, and your inspiration will instill respect, compassion, and thoughtfulness in all our deliberations. Give us the strength and wisdom to lead by example as the people's representatives, and that peace and harmony will mark all our proceedings and keep us faithful to the trust placed in us by the citizens of your community. Amen.
Amen. Alderman Singh, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd ask for a motion, please, for the adoption of the minutes of January 3rd and 18. Is there such a motion, please? Alderman Darrell Wilson, second. Alderwoman Tracy Berto. Is there discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Roberto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Newendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem Russo?
Yes.
Mayor Henderson?
Yes. Motion passes 7-0.
Public hearing. An ordinance proposing to amend ordinance section 7-91 to expand tract 1 of the enterprise zone described herein by adding a parcel of approximately 0.43 acres to it.
Thank you. At this time, I declare this a public hearing to be open, and I would ask our Assistant City Clerk to please read into the record the Commission on the City Plans letter regarding this matter.
Honorable Mayor and all the persons of the Council of the City of Norwich, an ordinance proposing to amend section 7-91 to expand tract 1 of the enterprise zone described therein by adding a parcel of approximately 0.43 acres to it. The Commission on City Plan at the January 27, 2022 hybrid special meeting reviewed and discussed the above referenced referral. Seated were Frank Manfredi, Les King, and Michael Lehan. After careful consideration, the Commission voted unanimously to forward a favorable recommendation to amend Ordinance 7-91 to expand Tract 1 of the Enterprise Zone, described therein by adding a parcel of approximately 0.43 acres to it to the City Council. Reason, a strategy in the 2013 POCD is to promote economic development in targeted zones, respectively submitted to Frank Manfredi, Chairman.
Thank you. We are operating under the executive orders issued by Governor Lamont. At this time, anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this ordinance, please call in the number at 860-215-8140, followed by the conference ID 403-8191 and the pound key. Again, if you wish to speak in favor of this ordinance, the phone number to dial is 860-215-8140, followed by the conference ID of 403-8191 and the pound key. This is a third request for those wishing to speak in favor. Please dial the number 860-215-8140, followed by the conference ID of 403-8191 and the pound key. At this time, I would then ask for anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this ordinance to please call in. Again, the number is 860-215-8140, followed by the conference ID 403-8191 and the pound key. Again, if you wish to speak against this ordinance, please call the number at 860-215-8140, and when prompted, the conference ID 403-8191 and the pound. This is the final request for anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this ordinance. Please dial the number 860-215-8140, followed by the conference ID 403-8191 and the pound key. At this time, having received no calls either in favor or opposed to the adoption of this ordinance, I would then declare that this public hearing is closed. Thank you.
Second reading and action on the above ordinance previously presented. An ordinance proposing to amend ordinance section -791 to expand tract 1 of the enterprise zone described therein by adding a parcel of approximately 0.43 acres to it.
Thank you. At this time, I entertain a motion to bring this ordinance to the floor. Is there such a motion? Alderman Wilson, seconded by Alderman Singh. Is there discussion? Seeing no discussion, I would simply say for anyone who is viewing this meeting, this ordinance expands the land of the enterprise zone by about 4/10 of an acre located on Laurel Hill Avenue. Previously, this land was not owned by the entity known as King Seeley Thermos, previously held a single-family home on it. It is now in the possession of the owner, Mr. Franklin, who owns the condos on that site above the charter school and the apartments in the glass house, and they wish to expand and build there as well. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
Alderman Bertle,
Yes.
Alderman Singh,
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Newendorf,
Yes.
President Pro Tem Galusha,
Yes.
Mayor Nyschel.
Yes. The ordinance is adopted by a roll call vote of 7-0. Thank you.
Petitions and communications. Number 1, audit report presentation by Ron Nosek of Clifton Larson Allen LLP.
Thank you. We'll get this on the floor, and then please proceed further, right to the podium. A motion, please put this on the floor to accept the presentation. Alderwoman Tracy Bertle, second by Alderman Singh. Mr. Nosek, you please have the floor.
I've got a presentation I think you all have a copy of. I'll move through it pretty quickly. It's rather redundant relative to the past few years that I've spoken to you. So we'll go over the scope of the engagement, the most important part really, the reporting results, some very high-level financial highlights. I'll just make you aware of some required communications, and that'll be it. I'll take any questions from you while I'm moving through, or if you want to hold them till the end. I realize you just received copies today of the audited financial statements, so clearly you haven't had any ample opportunity to formulate any inquiries or questions relative to those. If you need me to come back at a later date, or if you want to funnel questions after this evening through the finance department's office, then I'd be more than happy to address them as they come to me. So in terms of the engagement, we perform, as all municipal or governmental audits are performed, under a series of sets of standards. Primarily, it's reported, or we perform under generally accepted auditing standards, and that's our primary audit opinion relative to whether or not the financial statements are fairly represent the financial position and results of operations of the city in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We're also required to perform the audit under governmental auditing standards, which requires us to gain an understanding and document that understanding relative to the internal controls over financial reporting that the city has. Basically, how does all that information that is kept and monitored within the general ledger system turn into a financial statement at some point in time? We're also required to identify compliance requirements that in our opinion, a violation thereof would be material to the financial statements. And in those two instances, those two topics, we report to you in a separate report referred to as the Yellow Book report, which is contained in your federal and state single audits. And then we also perform audit work under Uniform Guidance, which was formerly the Federal Single Audit Act, and the Connecticut State Single Audit Act. That is somewhat similar to governmental auditing standards in that the focus is on internal controls and compliance, but in the two instances of federal single audit, state single audit, the spotlight is only on the major federal or major state programs, not on the overall financial reporting system, if you will, relative to the financial statements. So we're reporting, or issuing reports or commenting on all of those sets of standards, if you will. Again, the primary audit opinion, which is page 1 through 3 of the document you were handed out today, which is our audit opinion in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. We've issued an unmodified audit opinion, which is a clean audit opinion, indicating that the financial statements do represent fairly the financial position and results of operations of all of the applicable opinion units that exist here in the city or embedded in the city's financial statements. So I'm on slide 5 of this presentation, and I did list out, I thought I brought some eyeglasses with me, excuse me. I did list out all of the opinion units that are relevant to these financial statements. So we're actually opining, although it's one report, it opines on governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund, which include the general fund, your bond expenditure fund, educational grants fund, general government and grants and programs fund, and Norwich Public Utilities. So those are the major funds that are contained in the financial statements. So we issue separate opinions on all of those, and then everything else gets aggregated up into what's considered non-major funds, and we issue an opinion on those as well. So in all cases, the opinions that were issued were unmodified or clean audit opinions on the financial statements. Relative to governmental auditing standards, and in particular the segment of internal controls, we did not find any material weaknesses. As a matter of fact, we didn't find any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses over the internal control system relevant to financial reporting, so there was literally nothing to report to you. Our report indicates that nothing was discovered during the performance of our procedures. And then relevant to compliance, there were no instances of non-compliance that were noted during the performance of our audit procedures as well. Under Uniform Guidance, Federal Single Audit Act, similar in nature, there were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses relevant to internal control that were applicable to the major programs. I've listed them here. They were special education cluster under the Department of Education, COVID-19 elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund, which is often referred to as the ESSER fund. That's under Department of Education as well, and then Department of Treasury, your COVID-19 coronavirus relief fund. And I've given you the total expenditures in each of those programs, just for order of magnitude, if you will, for you to look at. But again, relevant to internal control, no deficiencies or significant deficiencies or material weaknesses were noted. Relevant to compliance under federal single audit and state single audit, we also issue an opinion there. Our opinion is an unmodified opinion, so there were no instances of non-compliance that were noted. Relevant, again, to the federal single audit and state single audit, it's the same thing. Clearly, the major programs are different. I list them here again, but it's an unmodified opinion on compliance and a clean opinion or a clean report on internal control, no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. So from the perspective of what we're reporting on, everything was either unmodified or no internal control findings or compliance findings that were necessary to be reported within the confines of our report to you. From a financial highlights perspective, and I realize some of these are probably a little bit difficult to see, and again, I'm going to be at 40,000 feet plus here, but relevant to your general fund, which typically is about the only thing I typically discuss here with you. Total general fund balance at the end of the year was $17,016,000, that represented a $2.6 million increase from the prior year. All of that balance is unrestricted, or unassigned, I should say, as of year end. That unassigned balance represents 12.4% of your budgetary expenditures and transfers out, which is within the fund balance policy of the city. So you are within the parameters of that policy at year end. From a budgetary perspective in the general fund, total budgetary revenues and operating transfers outpaced total budgetary expenditures and operating transfers out by $1.3 million. The revenue surplus of a little over $1 million, $1,054,000, was driven by higher than anticipated revenues from conveyance tax and building permit revenues, and property tax levies bumped a little bit, but I do believe that was in accordance with the budgetary plan that was adopted by council. And the little snapshot there is basically giving you your budget data and then your actual data, with the final column being the variance. So anything without brackets next to it is a positive variance, so you collected more revenue than what you had anticipated collecting. And as I said earlier, that variance was a little over $1 million, $1,054,000 overall. And then the next slide is a budgetary statement as well on the relevant to the expenditures. So total budgetary expenditures were lower than your projected estimates by about $286,000. And in almost all functional categories other than other expenditures, which is a little bit of a grab bag. It contains quite a bit in there, but every other functional category was in a positive variance position. And overall, as I said, $286,000 to the plus. So you add, if you're looking at this from the perspective of a budgetary surplus, add the two variances together because they're both going in the same direction, and you'd get your budgetary surplus for the year. The next slide relates to long-term debt, and this actually is a snapshot of your footnote right out of the financial statements. The top half of that slide is governmental activities. The bottom half is business type activities. So this, over on the left, I'm only talking about the governmental activities at this point in time, and in particular your bonds. So your long-term bonds decreased about $1.9 million, and it was primarily due to scheduled payments and then a refunding as well that took place during the year. And then the big one we've always talked about in my time with you is the pension liability, the pension and the OPEB liability, actually. And I've got some slides in here that we'll talk about that as well a little bit further. But the net pension liability for governmental activities decreased almost $19.5 million this year. So that from a directional perspective went in a great position, in a great direction, if you will. And then your OPEB liability, that decreased as well, about $3.8 million. Again, from a directional perspective, wonderful to hear. The next slide is your business type activities and the debt there relative to bonds and notes payable. They actually increased over on the business type side, which is predominantly NPU. This was primarily due to the issuance of state clean water notes during the fiscal year. There, again, in the same plans, assets invested in the same accounts, but the net pension liability for business type activities decreased almost 9.2 million, and the OPEB decreased about 223,000 for the fiscal year. Now, the last remaining slides cover your two pension plans and your OPEB plan, and they basically, these are right out of your report as well. These are part of your required supplementary information, RSI, and these are actually, I think, RSI 2, might be RSI 4 and RSI 6, these schedules, but you will see them in the report. But I think they're great from a comparative perspective because you can look, column year over year and see what this plan has been doing relative to the overall liability position, the overall fiduciary net position, so the value of your assets, and then the simple math between the two as to what the liability is. And if you look about 3/4 of the way down, there's a line item, net investment income, and you look at that across the board in the city plan this year, you realize net investment income of $40.7 million. And if you look at that, across year to year, that clearly was a significant positive factor in what happened to the liability year over year of the plan. And what I like to look at as well is 3 lines up from the bottom, you see the fiduciary net position percentage of the total pension liability. That's basically the funded percentage of the plan. So you see at the end of 21, it's 69.13% funded. So it jumped 10% in 1 year relative to the funding level. Now clearly, net investment income is a product of market conditions. So, and if you look at some prior years along the way, sometimes that was a negative number. So there's no guarantee that 10% positive move is going to stay around forever, but nonetheless, it was a great gain for this fiscal year. The next is the volunteer plan, same schedule, so I'm not going to go over the funding percentages. You can pick them out yourselves. And the net investment income, you can pick that out yourself as well. It's in the same position relative to the schedule. But again, you see it was a significant year compared to other years relative to the performance of the volunteer plan. And then finally, the OPEB plan, and one and the same, investment income of almost $5.5 million compared to $850,000 last year. So clearly that was the biggest influence in the position of the plans and the direction that they took. And then finally, our required communications. I won't go through these bullet by bullet. I'll just tell you, and there will be a formal letter that actually is going to be issued tomorrow to all of you relative to formal communications. But basically what they are required communications that the AICPA dictates that we present to those charged with governance. It's our opportunity, if there were any instances that we encountered in the performance of our audit where we felt as though management was trying to apply some bias to the financial statements, be it make them look better than they were or worse than they were, for whatever the reason may be. And all the topics that are listed in the required communications, really what they're designed to percolate out is any instances that may be an indication of bias. As you will read in that report, or if you just care to plow through these at a later time, there was nothing that came to our attention that would have caused us pause or belief that management was trying to do anything other than to present fairly presented financial statements. So that'll end my time in regards to the presentation. Any questions that you may have, I'd be more than happy to take them.
Just to inform you that in November, we went to the voters and sought approval of a $145 million bond. I see you shaking your head. You aware of that?
Yes.
It has now received the state's sign-off. So we'll be, I guess the next step is going to market for the sale of those, which will level our valleys and hills as far as the actual payments every year. Can you comment on that briefly? Or should you?
Yeah, I mean, I was quite honestly happy to hear of it. Your financial advisor is far more appropriate to take guidance from relative to this than me as your external auditor.
Yep.
But clearly, as I've said to you over the past few years, that was a liability that stood out amongst all of your other liabilities relative to the city. Not unique to the city of Norwich by any means, but I was happy to see, and I hope nobody takes offense to this, but the political will to take care of something that is so significant, because I know from a political perspective that's not an easy decision.
Thank you.
Yep.
Members, questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, we have a motion to adopt accept this communication. I believe we had a first and second.
Yes.
It's on the record. So is there any discussion on the resolution? Yes, President Pro Tem.
So I have a question for Josh or John, whichever one of you feels appropriate for you to answer. So the financial picture is a rosy one, and that's a great thing, and it's a tribute to the two of you and your work and the work of your folks. The question for me is, what does that mean now for us? We are about to enter into a budget cycle, and I look at these numbers, and I look at these gains and the increase. I should say the net positives, right, across the board, and I say, okay, with all of the things that we're doing, can one of those things finally be a reduction in the burden on a taxpayer? Are we finally in the point where we can turn around, instead of asking for more, give back and actually ask the taxpayers for less?
So the investment returns on the pension and OPEB funds, that was the stock market everywhere did well, so that improved that situation. The improvement in the general fund balance, we're now within the 12 to 17% range, return to that range that we have in our policy, so that's good news. There's some, so pension, OPEB, those are should be fairly stable and under control for the foreseeable future. Some headwinds are health insurance claims. Our health insurance costs could go up we're self-insured for that, so we're looking at possibly a 20% increase in that part of fringe benefits, so that's a downside, but many other things are moving in the right direction. Conveyance taxes and building permits
continue to be strong sources of revenue. Our tax collection rate is good. But, you know, all of these things working together, inflation and how that impacts us, it's still kind of one of those things that it's going to take a little while to gel. As John and I look at the department requests and revenue projections from the state of Connecticut.
I think the most significant one is, Josh talked about, was the medical benefits. In looking at that closely, I feel that it was somewhat a product of the coronavirus epidemic. Not so much that people got ill and they needed to be treated, that luckily was a small portion of the items. But the first year of the epidemic, 2020, most people deferred any hospitalization major items. As things got better in 21, then medical procedures that were put off in 20 were done in 21. So I think we have a weighted amount in 2021 that should be smoothed out, hopefully, if we maintain the coronavirus at the level that we're in now. So I'm thinking it was somewhat an aberration this year, and not a trend in the future.
Thank you. Floor. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on the resolution or statements? Yes, Alderman Singh.
Yes. Thank you, John, and thank you, Josh. So my question is on similar line, but my question is on general fund. So we have seen general fund has grown 2.6 million than last year, which is a great thing, you know. But now, what is the healthy general fund that we should be having? For example, if I'm spending $10, right? Maybe healthy thing for a definition of healthy fund might be different for different towns or the way of thinking. But if I have 100, I'm spending 10, I'm in a good shape. So do we have something similar when we deal with the town? Like we should have this much in general fund balance, and if there is any extra growth, is that can be passed to the taxpayers or to the residents?
We have an unassigned fund balance policy, which has a target range of 12 to 17%. With this fiscal year 2021, we're at 12.4%, so we're on the lower end of that, but still in a solid position. And the policy provides that if the fund balance were to go above 17%, then the council could use it for additional capital expenditures, or to use it for pay-as-you-go projects rather than incurring more debt. But we have not
Achieved
approached
that.
17% yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, discussion on the resolution before us? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
Alderman Rivera,
Yes.
Alderman Smith,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Ruther,
Yes.
President Pro Tem Lucia,
Yes.
Mayor Knight.
Yes. A motion passes to accept this on a 7-0 vote.
Number 2, resignation of Paul Zipowitz from the Norwich Tennis Committee.
A motion, please bring this to the floor. Alderman Wilson, second by Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion? Alderman Wilson.
Just want to thank Paul for his work stepping forward on such an important committee that did the work to get the tennis project to kind of where it is now, and wish him all the best.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
Alderman Berto,
Yes.
Alderman Singh,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Ruther,
Yes.
President Pro Tem Lucia,
Yes.
Mayor Knight.
Yes. Motion passes to receive 7-0.
Number 3, resignation of H. Tucker Braddock from Board of Review Dangerous Buildings.
Motion, please bring this to the floor. Alderwoman Gould, is there a second? Alderman Singh, is there discussion? Alderman Gould.
I just want to take a moment to thank Tucker Braddock for his diligent and dedicated service to the city of Norwich. I'm going to miss him on 3 of these committees that we sat on together. He works extremely hard for the city of Norwich each and every day, even now that he doesn't serve on the council. And Harbor Management and the Parking Commission are lucky to have him, and some of these other committees, it's a tremendous loss for the other committees that he's not serving. I understand that he's trying to reduce his commitments to the city, but Tucker loves the city, and I think he works for the city of Norwich 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And I just want to thank him for all of his past service. It's been a tremendous pleasure to work with him.
Thank you. President Pro Tem?
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to Tucker for all the reasons that we've already heard and so much more. He is one of the biggest cheerleaders for the city of Norwich, and as you've heard, he puts his money where his mouth is in terms of his service, and it is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion? Alderman Wilson?
Thank you. I too want to echo the same sentiments as my colleagues. It has been a pleasure to serve on several committees with him as well. And if you're looking for someone that is going to give you the honest truth about this city and its potential, he is the individual, and look forward to continuing to work with him on some of the other committees, but do thank him for all the work on these committees that he's done.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion? Alderman Singh?
I'll just second all of this because I know he's a clean-hearted person. I have known him for a long time, and he has very good intentions for our city. And he's not that kind of person who runs for credit. He just wants to get the right thing done in the city. So we will miss his vision in all these boards, but he is still involved with a lot of other boards and commission. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? A roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto,
Yes.
Alderman Singh,
Yes.
Alderwoman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Newendorf,
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia,
Yes.
Mayor Henry.
Yes. The motion is adopted 7-0.
Okay, number 4, resignation of Jeff Blinderman to the Recreation Committee.
Alderwoman Gould, second Alderman Wilson. Is there discussion? Alderwoman Gould.
Known Jeff Blinderman all of my life. I want to thank him for serving for so many years on the Norwich Rec Board. His young men now are heading off to college and are in college. So those colleges will benefit from Jeff's advice, experience, and I wish him all the best in the future and thank him for his service to the city of Norwich.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson.
I too want to echo those sentiments. It has been a pleasure to work with Jeff, both being a committee member, but also with some of the various fundraisers and activities of the recreation department. And, you know, if you're looking for someone that has enthusiasm for putting the recreation of our city first, he has been one of those individuals over the years, and I appreciate the thoughts and ideas he's brought to the table. And he has left his mark on the Rec Advisory Board, but also on the Recreation Department. So we wish him all of the best as well in what he does in the future.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Alderman Newendorf, please.
I would also just like to thank Jeff for everything he's done for Norwich and the rec department. I know he's going to be missed dearly, but we hope all the best for him and his family moving forward, and he'll be a member of the Norwich community for a long time. So thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson.
Yes.
Alderman Berto.
Yes.
Alderman Singh.
Yes.
Alderman Gould.
Yes.
Alderman Newsome.
Yes.
President Pro Tem Galusha.
Yes.
Mayor Knight.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0.
Number 5, annual report 2021 Commission of Persons with Disabilities.
Motion, please. Alderman Gould, second. Alderman Berto. Is there discussion on the motion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson.
Yes.
Alderman Berto.
Yes.
Alderman Singh.
Yes.
Alderman Gould.
Yes.
Alderman Newsome.
Yes.
President Pro Tem Galusha.
Yes.
Mayor Knight.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, number 6, report from the Commission on City Plan of the City of Norwich pursuant to Section 8-24 of the General Statutes and Chapter 15, Section 4 of the Norwich City Charter regarding an ordinance proposed to amend ordinance Section 791 to expand Tract 1 of the enterprise zone described herein by adding a parcel of approximately 0.43 acres to it.
Thank you. Is there a motion to bring this forward? Alderman Singh, Alderman Wilson. Is there discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson.
Yes.
Alderman Berto.
Yes.
Alderman Singh.
Yes.
Alderman Gould.
Yes.
Alderman Newsome.
Yes.
President Pro Tem Galusha.
Yes.
Mayor Knight.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0.
City Manager's report.
Thank you. This is the city manager's report for February 7th, 2022. Meetings attended were the state representatives and legislators, Southeastern Council of Governments, Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, NPU City Coordination Meeting, Standard & Poor's Bond Rating Call, who affirmed the city's AA stable rating, Emergency Operations Center for the blizzard of 2022, and the first 2 goal-setting sessions. Through Thursday, February 3rd, Norwich Public Works has responded to 10 winter weather events this season. While most of these have had little accumulation, there has been a moderate amount of icing, which requires numerous treatments. 2 of the storms have been significant, one on January 7th, which dropped about 7 inches of snow, and the recent blizzard of 2022 on Saturday, January 29th, which dumped about 22 inches of snow on Norwich. The latest storm was all hands on deck situation. Plows started very early in the morning hours Saturday and continued on their routes until about noon Sunday. The fleet mechanics and the building maintenance people were all in for the duration of the storm. Approximately 300 tons of salt were used for the storm, bringing the season's total usage to about 1,000 tons, still less than half of a typical winter. The post-blizzard cleanup included 4 days of snow removal from the downtown Greenville and Taftville streets. The purpose of this cleanup is to make the streets safer for both vehicles and pedestrians. Most of this work has been done on regular time, incurring minimal additional overtime costs. Thanks to the Norwich Police, who proactively enforced the parking ban both during the storm and for post-storm cleanup activities, and NPU, who provided a large 10-wheel dump truck and driver for the cleanup. While the cost of responding to these 10 storms was significant, in the neighborhood of about $150,000, this is something we budgeted for. As long as the next 2 months are not out of the ordinary, we should be in a satisfactory position from a budgetary standpoint. The city's community development office is accepting community development block grant applications until 4 p.m. on Thursday, February 10th, 2022, for the upcoming program year, and anticipates $876,317 in federal funding. Additional information is available on the website. Governor Lamont announced the 4th round of community connectivity grants and Norwich will be awarded $599,887 for the installation of 0.6 miles of sidewalks along West Town Street, which will improve pedestrian safety. Congratulations to Norwich Human Services, who were recognized by the NAACP with the Robinstein Duncan Memorial Award, along with the Unitarian Universal Church of Norwich, for the work serving the citizens of Norwich during the pandemic. The award included a certificate of special recognition from Senator Richard Blumenthal, and the award was presented to the Norwich Human Services team by Kathy Olston and Senator Kevin Ryan. I have attached Norwich Community Development and CDC annual report for the year ending December 31st, 2021. And that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, John. If we could have one correction. At the last paragraph, it is Senator Kathy Olson and State Representative Kevin Ryan,
Right,
not Senator
I said
Kevin
Senator, yeah, I
Ryan.
just got him into the other house there.
Yep. Thank you. Is there comments or questions to the city manager? Alderman Singh.
I just have a quick comment. I just want to kudos all the work Norwich Public Works has done, dealing with a lot of snow and ice rain and whatnot. So thank you for all the work you have done.
Thank you. Is there further comment or question to the city manager? Alderman Wilson.
I think I'd like to, also give a kudos not only to the Norwich Public Works, but all of our fire departments, Norwich Public Utilities, the police, every single individual that had to weather the last storm or so. I also want to give a kudos to our superintendent working in a collaborative effort to make sure decisions are made to keep everyone safe. And it's just part of the process of us working together to do what's best for the city. And I want to thank each and every individual for keeping each and every single resident safe, but more importantly, working together to make sure we had a successful operation.
Thank you. Further comment? I would just add my thanks to the Public Works Director, Pat McLaughlin. He is still fielding individual calls for people dealing with large amounts of snow. And I know they went out to address one on Maple just this afternoon. And they'll probably have more calls, and you'll probably get emails like I did. But they're very, very responsive with our director over there, and that should be noted. Thank you. Next, please.
Okay. Citizen comments or resolutions or agenda items?
Thank you. I declare citizen comment on the 9 resolutions on our agenda to be open. If you wish to comment, call in, please, at the number of 860-215-8140, and when prompted, the conference ID of 403-8191. The lines are open, and for the listening audience or viewing audience, we have appointments to the Yonkers Health District. We have reappointments and appointments to Mohegan Park Improvement Development Advisory Committee. We have reappointment to the Norwich Ice Arena, a reappointment to the Southeastern Connecticut Water Authority. We have an appointment of an alternate member to the Historic District Commission. There's an appointment of a regular member of the Recreation Advisory Board. There's the appointment to the Clifton Larson Allen LLP accounting firm for this fiscal year. Also relative to the Tennis Ad Hoc Committee, Recreation requested this, and they were expiring this month, so we're recreating that for the next 2 years. And then there's the schedule for the Rock to Docks and Rock in the Green 2022 series. Those are the 9 items, and we invite your comment on them. Again, the number is 860-215-8140. When prompted, conference ID 403-8191 and the pound key. Again, we welcome your comments, your concerns. The number to call in is 860-215-8140. When prompted, the conference ID 403-8191 and the pound key, please. Again, the number to call in is 860-215-8140. When prompted, conference ID 403-8191, followed by the pound key. Final request, again, if you wish to speak on any of the 9 resolutions on this agenda, please call in at 860-215-8140. And when prompted, conference ID 403-8191, followed by the pound key. At this time, as there are no callers, I declare this part of our agenda, citizen comment and resolutions, to be closed. Thank you.
New business resolutions relative to reappointments and appointments of regular members to the Uncas Health District.
Motion, please, to bring this to the floor. Alderman Singh, second by Alderman Berto. Is there discussion? Alderman Gould?
I would just like to take the opportunity to thank Dr. Gonzalez and Pam Aubin to be willing to be appointed to this, to the Uncas Health District in the time of the pandemic. Even more important, Frank and Becky have carried this torch alone for a long time, and they look forward to working with Dr. Gonzalez and Mrs. Aubin. So thank you for your willingness to step up and serve the city.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? President Pro Tem.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to refer this to the Reappoint Subcommittee of the Council. I did a little bit of research. I can find no record that this committee has met since the start of the term, and there's no record of vote for these appointments.
Alderman Gould?
These appointments were discussed with amongst the committee members, and it was unanimously decided.
Yeah, so you held an off-the-book meeting to decide these appointments?
It was a telephone conversation that I had with Alderman Wilson.
Was that a
And
public
he
meeting?
subsequently, we had a telephone conversation. He and I had a telephone conversation.
Well, we have a motion on the floor.
Did
Well-
anybody second it? I just,
Well,
everyone said that.
okay, motion by the Pro Tem to refer, and the second is Alderman Singh.
Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion to refer? Alderman Wilson.
So for Alderman DeLucia's concern, if he would like us to go through the process of having an actual meeting and interviewing these individuals, I am totally fine with that by following the process. I think one of the things we've been talking about is just that, so I don't have a problem doing that. Even though, as you said, there are no actual minutes. We did have a conversation about it, but I do respect you wanting us to go through the process like any other referral, so thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the motion to refer? I have a question, either for Alderman Wilson or Alderman Gould. I'm just going to assume that you weren't able to schedule a meeting, and so you then relied on phones, and you sought to reach out to all 3 members. I hope that is the pattern, but
Yes.
Yes.
I had a
Okay.
conversation with Alderman Wilson. He subsequently spoke to Alderwoman Berto, and these were the recommendations we were bringing to the council. In light of the pandemic, City Hall being closed, some of these people are older, do not have access to Zoom. I think this was expeditiously done. There were no candidates that were not reviewed. These were the applications that we received. No one was excluded.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion to refer? President Pro Tem.
I have, well, it's a point of clarification. So you're saying that Alderwoman Gould spoke with Alderman Wilson on the phone, who then had a phone conversation with Alderwoman Berto on the phone. That's not a meeting of this committee. I could understand that, especially if candidates are, let's say, call it unopposed, that we don't have to have formal interviews, or you could interview by phone. But the committee has to have a legitimate legal meeting. I mean, that would be like me calling Alderwoman Gould on the phone to say, oh, we're going to, this is a public safety meeting, but it's just going to be me and you on the phone, and nobody else is going to be privy until we bring an action to the council.
None of this was done in secret. All of the applications were, I believe, were sent to Alderman Wilson. There was no one that was excluded from, there wasn't like, well, we picked Joe and Tony and didn't pick Susan. These were exactly the applications that we received.
And I'm not, may I respond? Ms. Mayor?
Certainly, yeah.
Well, I'll respond I will state to the chair, because our comment's supposed to be made to the chair. So I will say that I'm not saying that there was any impropriety, either in intent or in action. I'm saying that the committee did not hold a legal meeting to be able to bring forward an action to this council.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Alderman Singh.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think we should, my recollection is it should be referred. Seems like nobody's challenging any, candidates or nothing on that level, but it's a procedural matter. So maybe it should be referred. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Wilson, you had your hand up.
I think, instead of us having the back and forth of it, just if we've got to have a meeting and refer these individuals back, having a meeting with actual minutes to satisfy those on the council. We've talked about transparency and the part of following a process. If we've got to do that, I think we can handle that in a fashion and have these brought back to the council by the next meeting. So instead of us going back and forth and belaboring the point, let's just do what we have to do as far as the council and the business. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the motion to refer?
Make a motion that we amend. We amend it to include resolution 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Is there a second?
You need a second on the motion to
Her
amend it?
motion to expand the motion to refer to include the next 5. Yes, second by Alderman Wilson. Okay, on the motion to include the referral for all resolutions 1 through 6, is there further discussion? Alderman Singh.
So 7 and 8 should not be part of it? No.
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 No, they're completely different,
Okay.
not within the purview of the advisory committee that we're discussing tonight. Is there further discussion on that motion to include now 1 through 6? All those in favor, a roll call, please?
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
Alderman Roberto,
Yes.
Alderman Singh,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Newendorf,
Yes.
President Pro Tem Galusha,
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom.
Yes. The motion to amend the referral for 1 through 6 passes 7-0. On the motion to refer, which we still need to dispose of, is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
Alderwoman Berta,
Yes.
Alderman Singh,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Newendorf,
Yes.
President Pro Tem Galusha,
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom.
Yes. That motion to refer passes 7-0. On the motion to adopt Resolution 1, which now includes 1 through 6 as amended, is there further discussion?
Point of order, they were not amended.
No, we're
They
not
were
amending
referred.
them.
No, we amended Resolution 1, though. That's what was before us.
We didn't change anything about the resolution, we just referred it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've made all of them now be referred, 1 through 6.
Correct. So we should be on 7.
Council, are we clear?
So I think that the motion is just to refer it, no action on it tonight, and we'll come back at some point with the
Mhm.
resolution.
Okay. Just want that on the record, thank you. Number 7, please.
Okay, relative to appointing Clifton Larson Howard LLP accounting firm for fiscal year 21-22.
Motion to bring this to the floor. Alderman Wilson, second. Alderwoman Berto. Is there discussion? Being none, roll call.
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto,
Yes.
Alderman Singh,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Newendorf,
Yes.
President Pro Tem Galusha,
Yes?
Mayor Nystrom.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. Number 8, relative to tennis ad hoc committee recreation term extension.
Motion, please bring this to the floor. Alderman Wilson, second. Alderman Berto, is there discussion? Yes, Alderman Wilson.
The blanks in the resolution, are we filling those in? Are we selecting them now? Okay.
I'm sorry, Attorney Driscoll, could you please, through a microphone, put that on the record? Probably wasn't picked up for recording purposes.
The resolution has 3 unfilled dates, in the, one in the last of the various clauses, and one in each of the 2 resolutions that the council adopts. I think in adopting the resolution, before you act on it, you should amend it to put in the appropriate dates in those 3 ending points. I assume they'll be the same dates in all 3, but
Yes.
whatever the pleasure of the council.
Thank you. The previous committee, when it was appointed, it was for a 2-year period in time. If the clerk could inform us when that appointing authority technically expired, although they continue to serve until either removed or reappointed?
I believe it's the 5th.
Okay, that's what I thought. So as in the past, it's 2022, February 2024, I believe would be appropriate. If someone might make that a motion, Alderman Wilson, second by Alderman Singh. Is there discussion? Alderman Wilson.
So just so that I'm correct, in the first whereas, it would be, in the first blank whereas, it would say the board involves the restoration of the Armstrong courts can be extended for 24 months?
Yes.
Okay, and then it's going to be 24 months for the
Yep.
other two as well. Thank you.
That'll get us there. Is everyone clear? Yep. Okay. Did you make that in the form of a motion to fill in the blank?
Yes.
And who seconded it, please?
I'll second it.
Alderman Singh.
Alderman Singh, thank you. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Alderman Singh,
Yes.
Alderman Rudolph,
Yes.
President Pro Tem Lucia,
Yes?
Mayor Knightson.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0 as amended.
Relative to Rock the Docks and Rocking the Green 2022 series.
Point of order.
Yes.
That was the motion on the amendment, correct? So now we
Yes.
need to
Yeah,
vote on the
Yeah.
actual resolution. I just want to make sure.
okay.
Second roll call,
Second roll call, Resolution 8 as amended.
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
Alderman Roberto,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Singh,
Yes.
Alderman Rudolph,
Yes.
Alderman Lucia,
Yes?
Mayor Knightson.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0 as amended.
Number 9, relative to Rock the Docks and Rocking the Green 2022 series.
Motion to bring this to the floor, Alderwoman Gould, second, Alderman Wilson. Is there discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
Alderman Roberto,
Yes.
Alderman Singh,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Rudolph,
Yes.
President Pro Tem Lucia,
Yes?
Mayor Knightson.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Resolution is adopted.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Alderwoman Gould. Is there a second? Alderman Singh. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
Alderman Roberto,
Yes.
Alderman Singh,
Yes.
Alderman Gould,
Yes.
Alderman Rudolph,
Yes.
President Pro Tem Lucia,
Yes?
Mayor Knightson.
Yes. Motion adopted. We are adjourned.